And without further ado, here is our crew this evening. Why don't we? Okay, great. We've got socials on there. Why don't we just do a little round robin and go ahead and introduce yourselves, ladies? Mackenzie, kick it off.
Hey everybody, my name is Mackenzie Tricker. I'm originally from Australia. Grew up in Australia, um, you know, all the way up until I was about 16, and I moved over here to the US to follow a career racing dirt bikes. And I was able to do so. Race motocross growing up, and then when I first moved to the US, for probably about 6 years or so, and then I switched to off-road, enduro, hair scrambles, things like that. But I've enjoyed riding motorcycles my whole life. Once I finished racing or retired, I was looking for something to, stay, keep that adrenaline going. Didn't want to go to a 9 to 5 office job. And I found the Performance Center, which was local to where I was living at the time. And I became an instructor in 2021, and I became a full-time instructor in 2023. So I love getting to ride and share my knowledge and experiences with, students and people from all around the US and all around the world.
I love that. That's awesome. I want to hear a little bit more about that, but let's just bounce around. Melinda, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, I'm Melinda. I grew up in Western North Carolina, but I lived in South Carolina for almost 20 years. I've also been riding my whole life. My dad, my brothers, and uncles, and everyone always had motorcycles. So I've bought my first bike when I was 18. I started on sport bikes and did that through my 20s. I mostly ride off-road now. I didn't have a ton of adventure experience when I joined the Performance Center. I've been there for 12 years now. July will be 12 years. So a good chunk of my adult life. Like Mackenzie, I just kind of try to ride anything I can. I'm, super passionate like these other ladies about continuing education and teaching, and I really enjoy that part of it, as well as personal writing too. So
I love that. Wendy?
Hey guys, my name's Wendy James. I am not really from anywhere I say because I come from a military family, so I grew up moving all over the United States. I came into motorcycle riding in my late 20s, so kind of a late bloomer, but I was instantly hooked. So if it had two wheels and a motor, I was going to ride it, and I would ask friends to ride their bikes, and we had a lot of different things that we would do outside of the city of Chicago. We'd go ice riding in the wintertime. I took flat track racing school. I did a bunch of track days, basically just anything I could get my hands on because I was so excited right away. I've been at the Performance Center for about 5.5 years now, just under 6 years, and I love it. And one of the best parts that I love is the community and being able to do things like this and meet the people. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And Katie?
Hey girls, my name's Katie. I grew up racing motocross, so I started when I was 4 on a little PW 50. And there's a slide of the PW 50 coming up in here as well. But I had an older sister that raced, so it was just me and my sister that raced, and then my dad raced, my uncle and grandfather. So come from a racing background, in a family. I was at the track when I was 2 weeks old, so it's in my blood. Motorcycling's in my blood. But I love anything two wheels, honestly. I started working here. It'll almost be 3 years. 3 years now. We're coming up on 3 years, and it's awesome. And the women's classes are near and dear to all of our hearts. We definitely love them. And if you guys have any questions or anything, let us know. We'll help you guys through. But yeah, that's a little bit about my background. So thank you.
I love that. That's awesome. So it's so cool. These women all have different backgrounds, and everybody came to the table tonight with a little personal antidote, which is so fun. So I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to kind of dive in to some of their things. And Mackenzie, just because you ended up as the first slide on the thing, you get to go first, and it's from racer to mom. So tell us a little bit about your story, Mackenzie.
Yeah, so obviously grew up racing. Racing's been my whole life up until 2023. Retired and then moved into the Performance Center and working. Still getting to ride a lot, but just I have a 1-year-old and 2 week, I guess. So just a little bit over one. I have a little boy, so obviously life is definitely a lot different now, but it's awesome. So now, I mean, obviously trying to juggle work and then riding. Um, it's just different. Obviously, every day I woke up before to, focus on racing and how to be a better racer and, riding motorcycles. Now it's obviously just making sure that I can, give my son a good life. And it's looking like he's probably going to ride motorcycles. I wasn't a huge, I wasn't going to push him to ride or anything like that. And I still will not. If he wants to, I will absolutely, give him everything to, ride. And if he wants to race, give him everything to try and, race and have a good career if that's what he wants to do. But yeah, he's one. He can't walk yet. He can say a couple of words, but just for his first birthday 2 weeks ago, he got a couple of toy motorbikes, and he pushes them around and makes motorbike noises. And we have a quad and a couple of little small bikes at our house, and he like cries if I don't take him on them. So it's definitely something different. Obviously, like I said, I used to wake up and just try to be a better racer. Now now I'm trying to just be a good mom, and it's looking like he's going to ride as well.
I love that. Are there any parallels, like anything you learned during your racing days that you are now directly applying to being a mom?
Just obviously 100% effort. Put your best foot forward. But it's definitely different. But it's definitely have 100% focus on being a mom, whereas before I was 100% focused on riding and racing.
I love that. That's awesome. What was it about racing that hooked you in your early days?
I'm a very competitive person. So I
into the
enjoyed.
topic here, ladies.
I was always out. Like I like to be outside. I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. So then when I started riding, I really enjoyed it. And then when I figured out I could race and be competitive against other people, I think that's what hooked me. And still now, whether it's going bowling or I've just actually started playing golf a little bit, like I'm really competitive with everything I do. So I think that's really what drove me to be better. And regardless of racing, when I am riding and I'm riding with other people and other friends, if I see somebody do something, I'm like want to figure out how to do it or, do what they're doing. So I think that's what's helped me, get to where I'm at in riding. And I definitely see that here, even at the Performance Center, when some friends come, one may be better than the other. And they see their friend do it and they're like, I've got to learn how to do it, or I'm going to try to do that. And I think that's how everybody gets better. And that's what's addicting when riding motorcycles.
I love that. That's awesome. And we'll loop back to some of those in a little bit. Mackenzie, thank you so much. Melinda, you face a problem that so many women, not me, but so many women relate to. And you said that your story is about being a little bit of a shorter rider.
Yeah, so I am 5'4.5" because that half counts. I have a 28-inch inseam, so I can't flat foot anything except for my grom. And I never have been able to, even on sport bikes, they're not as tall as adventure bikes, but I never could. So from a really early age, I learned to only ever put one good foot on the ground. And that is something that we teach in all of our classes, but I think is even more important for ladies. Learning to plan your stops on road or off road. Because on road, the roads can be, crowned, or there might be leaves on the road. I have a specific story about that downtown. Or off road. I mean, you can use a lot of things to hold yourself up on, but also, planning your spacing between people in groups, or, getting through an obstacle and where you can stop or where you can put your feet down. But in addition to that, like your body position, being able to move your body around on the bike and it not affect the bike so much and its balance. So keeping your balance, but putting your body where it needs to be more effective to touch the ground a whole lot easier. But also I learned to pick up a motorcycle very, very early on because if you've ever ridden off-road, that's just kind of part of it. So for me, it's easier to, just let it fall over and just pick it up. It's a whole lot safer and a lot less risky for your body too. So
I love that. What are the perks of being a shorter rider? There's got to be the hidden perks.
So going through the woods, a lot of times you go under the spider webs. So that's really great.
You just ride behind someone taller when it's really...
Yeah, exactly. Perks of being shorter.
I mean, no pressure, but there's got to be some. I just feel like there's something inherent in motorcycling where no matter where you are at physically or age-wise or whatever, there's always a lesson there. You know what I mean? And so, maybe,
I think if you're an on-road rider, you're not in the wind as much. It's a whole lot more comfortable of a ride, like on the highway or long rides. If you're a long distance rider, that is a huge perk over taller riders, where you're just kind of behind the windshield and you don't really have to try as hard. If you're on sport bikes, you fit on them a whole lot better, so you can tuck down a whole lot easier. So there are some perks, here and there. And Katie is around the same height as me, so she might have something to add too. But yeah, we both face, the little bit shorter disadvantage. Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Wendy, you're next. So we're just going down the queue. I love these cute little slides with everybody's pictures blurred out. Wendy, you also have something that a lot of us can relate to, learning after 40.
Yeah, so I started riding in my late 20s, so I was kind of late to that. And I didn't get to the dirt until I was 40 years old. When I went to the Performance Center, it was just before my 40th birthday. So I guess technically I was 39, but, really honing in that skill for adventure riding 40 plus, I'm 45 now. It was a very different experience than when I first started riding and doing all the crazy things in my 20s. So it's definitely a hurdle, but I feel like you also can bring a confidence with you that maybe I wouldn't have had when I was younger.
I love that. And I would assume that being in your 40s, I feel like we learn differently as we get older. And I wonder if you're seeing any of that, like as an instructor, like dealing with a younger student versus an older student, or as an instructor improving your skills. Are you seeing like different changes in how you learn and assimilate information?
That is such a great question. I mean, yes, for me personally and my learning journey in my 20s, I didn't care about the consequences. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to try it. Let's go. And not think twice about it. And now I want you to tell me all of the details of what I'm about to do so I can mentally process it and then go try it. And I will say, especially over 40 and as we get older, we have a lot of women that come into our classes that are going through perimenopause. And one of the symptoms of that, I will stay on this soapbox, is anxiety. And you don't even realize it unless someone tells you, like, hey, that's a normal thing to go through. And so we see a lot of that stuff come up in our classes and are fully equipped to help with that.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay on that soapbox, girl. I'll tell you. Come on now. It's like,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, on the other end of the spectrum, Katie, you're the youngest on the team. And also it looks like you're a little ripper here. I love this so much. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you got going on.
Yeah, so I'm 23 years old. But yeah, I started riding when I was 4. But I am the youngest instructor here, including all the guys that we work with as well. But like it's awesome. Like I don't feel like different. Like even though a lot of older people like they have a lot more experience, riding a motorcycle and life experience. I don't feel any different from them, and it's awesome. So I was blessed that I got to start riding at such a young age. As you can see in that slide over there to the right, that was my first bike. It was my sister's old bike, so I always got the hand-me-downs for a while. But I was always happy to be on a bike. And then the slide to the left is me. That was 2021, it says, just one of my championships racing. And then also the AMA does some awards, and I got the Female Racer of the Year in 2020. So that was really cool. And I, it's just awesome. And then also touching back on being a shorter rider with Melinda, I know how it is, and there's a lot of shorter women. And I think one of the bigger things is like learning to move on the bike as well. That like you don't have to be centered on the bike and then planning your stops. If you see me stop, you're gonna see me stop on like put my foot on a rock, or like maybe I stop in a rut or something like that. But yeah, being one of the younger riders and then also instructors here, I just love the space that I'm in, and everybody like is so awesome towards me. So I feel like even being the one of the older ladies, it's kind of like it can kind of feel similar in a way as well. But I also feel like getting young people into motorcycling is really important too. So if they start when they're young, it's not as big of a change if somebody wants to start when they're a little bit older. So I love seeing younger people ride, teenagers and stuff like that, just because I mean it's what I do and it's what I love to do. So
I mean, we need that, right? It's so important. Like, we need people of all ages riding. Like, we can't just be like, I feel like there is, especially on the ADV side of things, I feel like there's a little bit of a stereotype going on about
yeah.
the typical ADV folks are. So, how cool that you're out here. You're like a pioneer for the younger generation.
And then also like coming like my mom let me ride as well. Like a lot of kids I knew, like their mom may not have let them race or something like that. Like if they were the girl. So it was nice that like I had a mom that she let both of her daughters race. And I mean, most of the time when you see kids and stuff, it's the mom, like if they say no. So getting women into sports and into adventure riding, it opens up to allow their young kids to ride as well. So I think it's really important to get younger people riding, and then older women as well that have kids to allow their kids to ride. And then it's not such a change whenever they ask for a bike, maybe when they're 18 or get their motorcycle license, they have to hide the bike. So
I love that. Have you seen, like, do you feel like you've specifically influenced some of your friends into the world of adventure motorcycling? Have you carried
yeah, like
anybody across the line?
I'm definitely newer to the adventure world just because I come from racing dirt bikes, similar to like Mackenzie. But so I like most of my friends still have dirt bikes and stuff. But yeah, I think I've introduced some people, and then I think people that come here, they may see me and they're like, oh well, she's young. Maybe like I can get my daughter or my son into it. That's young as well. So
I love
hopefully.
that. Awesome. 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 Well, one of the things that we always talk about on the SheADV side of things is how rad the Performance Center looks. Like, we all just want to go there and play and ride around and check out this incredible facility. And like, yeah, and it seems like it's not just like, I just think of like the latest and greatest GSs going around on the dirt course, but it sounds like there's a whole lot more going on at the Performance Center than what I think of. So Mackenzie, tell us a little bit about what you guys have going on out there, because it looks so stinking fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, firstly, we're located in Greer, South Carolina, about 5 minutes or so from the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport. So if you're not local, it is very accessible, with the airport being really close. We have about 137 acres of facility with a lot of different off-road areas, trails. We also have an on-road track that we share with the cars. Obviously, being the Performance Center, we have motorcycles and cars, but we share the on-road with the cars, and then we have the off-road all to ourselves. But yes, we operate year round. South Carolina has pretty good weather. Obviously, me being from Australia, the winters are still pretty cold for me. But for everybody up north, winter down here is actually really beautiful. And we, operate year round, and we ride in the rain and shine. The only thing that we stop for is if we have lightning within 10 miles or so of the facility, which doesn't seem to happen too often. But yes, we ride in the mud, in the dust, in the cold, in the hot. So yes, year round, we offer multiple different classes. Obviously, we have on and off-road programs. We have, a 1 and 2 day on-road and off-road program. And then for the women, we have just introduced a on-road program, which we did years ago, and it kind of went away for a little bit, but it's come back for this year. So we have a women's on-road only program. And then we also have women's off-road only program. We offer MSF classes. So if you have a rider that's looking to get into motorcycling, we offer that. We also have an authority class. We have some police officers and retired police officers that are part of our program here at the Performance Center that have put together a program that's more, like slow speed cone style courses that they learned some of the skills when they were training to become motor officers. We also offer tours locally and internationally. We do private training as well, not just in a group. So some people, may want to step it up to the next level or like to just come and train one-on-one with an instructor. So that's always an option as well. Other than that, is there any other questions you have on the facility?
I mean, it's awesome. Ladies, if you have questions specifically about the facility, just drop them in the chat over there. It was making me think that I should pop back over here. So these women's courses, I noticed there's 1, 2, and 3 day courses that y'all have. Are these like on-road, off-road, different? Like, is a 3 day course give you the whole shebang and one is like a little bite size, or how does that all work?
So this list is what we have for the rest of this year, which is off-road, and then we're bringing back the on-road next year.
Awesome.
Yeah. Can
Super
I
cool.
just add one thing about the program that is really awesome? So when you're out here, let's say you're in a 2 day program, you have the classroom for 2 days, so you can bring all your gear in your big gear bag and leave it overnight. And when we're out on the range, we have a logistics person with us. So they're bringing coolers full of water and Gatorade and snacks and things like that. So we're not just out here, it's like also it's fully supported. And with the feedback that we've received from customers, we also have restrooms now out on the range, so you don't have to go behind a bush, which is a very nice amenity.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very important. Back to our perimenopause conversation earlier on.
Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Well, it looks like an absolute blast here. Ladies, whenever you get a chance, like take a peek. I've definitely seen cool videos and all kinds of amazing stuff happening over there. So somebody just said that it's like the world's best playground in the chat, which it's gotta be. Like, it just all looks so stinking fun. So I'm super excited to get out there one of these days for sure, for sure. And I feel like this is another perspective on what's going on. So I'm assuming this cones situation is happening. Like, I'm picturing this cones thing kind of like somewhere over here in this situation, like somewhere on this pavement. And you all like run the gamut when it comes to skills. Like both the on-road and the off-road, but just given the nature of our group tonight, Melinda, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the on-road skills and off-road skills, because ADV is both, but hit us with those dirt skills, girl. Let's hear what you got.
So for our women's classes specifically, and to tack on to what Wendy and Mackenzie were talking about with the facility and our program specifically, bikes are included and they're at $0 liability. So that's a huge thing that's very different than most places. So you don't have to worry about damaging a bike if you do fall over or you hit something. It's no big deal. It happens all the time. So that's really important. And I think that eases a lot of minds. It's a good peace of mind when you come and take our courses. There's no deductible, there's no insurance, nothing. So of course we do have the full lineup of the GSs. So you can pick anything from a 310 to the 1300s and whatever in between. We do have some lowered options and some adjustable suspension options. So we try to facilitate that as best we can based on our fleet. We have over 150 motorcycles now, I think, maybe more than that now. So we usually can find something for everybody. So skills wise, in the women's specific curriculum, it's not a whole lot different than the co-ed classes. We just spend a little bit more time on things that are more important to women. A lot of times that's the center stand, because it can be very intimidating, especially if you're smaller or if the bike is bigger. And a lot of people haven't needed to do that. If they have someone they ride with or a husband that does it for them all the time, they've never really needed to. And it can be intimidating. So spending a little bit of time on that and making sure everybody is very comfortable with that and knowing how to do it, even if maybe you don't ace it, having that tool in your belt. And then we definitely spend a lot of time on picking up the bike. That is probably one of the biggest things for women, because they need to be confident that if they're in the back of the line, or if they're riding by themselves, or if they're just in their backyard, that if something happens, they're able to do that on any of the motorcycles. Most of what we teach is very universally accepted on any kind of bike. It may be a little easier on some versus others, but the skills are transferable to pretty much any kind of bike. So that's a really, really big one. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm short, and when you fall over, you got to pick it up. So learning that skill, we teach a few different ways, mostly for energy conservation, because it can be very tiring if you're on a long ride or a week-long ride, and it happens several times a day in some challenging terrain. That can really wear you out. So that's probably one of the biggest asks. And we actually make that an exercise versus a demonstration like we do in other classes. And then probably something else, especially for the off-road class, that a lot of women haven't faced, is we stand on the bike. So I don't know if you can see on that picture. When you're off-road, you're standing a majority of the time. And a lot of women have never done that. And it can be a little intimidating, especially on a bigger bike that maybe you haven't ever been on before. And we'll talk a lot about confidence here in a minute, but gaining that confidence and not letting the bike itself intimidate you, no matter what number is stamped on the side of it or how big the plastic is on there. I think that's a huge hurdle that a lot of women have to cross. I mean, I think all of us have probably been there too. And the women's classes definitely have a different vibe than our co-ed classes. The dynamic is very, very different. Conversations are different. The camaraderie is very different. The community is very different. Women tend to be a lot more supportive of each other, bigger cheerleaders, things like that. And which is really helpful, because it can be frustrating sometimes when you don't do something just right. I mean, I think I probably speak for most or all of us, where we're pretty hard on ourselves sometimes. So I think that's really helpful to have somebody giving you a pat on the back or an attaboy and really encouraging you through some of the tougher skills that you might be struggling with. So I think that's probably some of the main differences. If you guys want to jump in on anything else, you're more than welcome to.
I love it. That's awesome. Ladies, don't hesitate to drop those questions in the chat. I've definitely seen a couple pop up, and we'll talk about some of that stuff at the end. But yeah, anything skills questions specific, don't hesitate to pop those questions in there. I see some fun stuff going on about the sizes. Somebody came from an XT, jumped straight onto a 1300 Viv. So cool. I love that. It's so fun. It's so fun. And it's just such a reminder how important training is. At SheADV, we suggest that you take a class every year, just something to refresh, to reset, to give yourself a little tune up. So every year, like do yourself a solid. You can get a mani-pedi and you can take a motorcycle training class as well. It's not one or the other, ladies. I just want to let you know. So confidence, Wendy, you're taking this one.
Yes, I'm going to actually put these in a little bit of a different order. That's on me, and start with the professional training because I think that the number one thing that you can do for yourself to build your confidence, just like you were saying, Eva, is professional training and from a reputable source because Billy Bob's Barbecue and, bikes out in his backyard, not necessarily the place that you want to go. But when you come to somewhere like the BMW Performance Center, we are a professional facility. We're all professionally trained, and we're all very passionate about building the confidence in our riders. And I feel like you can really see that in how we work with our students. Hopefully, I hope, that's a lot of the feedback that we get. But then starting small, if you're starting small, I mean that literally on a bike. So people ask me all the time, how did you start riding on such, or like, how do you ride such big motorcycles? Well, I started on a 1975 Honda CB 200. It was 200 cc's. I don't think it went faster than 60 miles an hour, but I put 2,000 miles on that motorcycle a week, driving all over the Midwest and just kind of getting the seat time and the practice. Um, so literally start with a small bike and then work your way up in CC. So I went from a 200 to a 1973 450 to a 2000, very modern 2000 SV 650, and kind of continued from there. One of the other slides that you're going to see, or I think it already showed, my first adventure bike was the 700 GS, and I loved that motorcycle. There it is. Yeah, I loved that motorcycle. Same thing. I went to my first BMW MOA rally on that bike. I rode out west with my dog on the back. So just, really taking small steps in the CCs will help a lot with that. And then also small steps in your practice. If you want to get more confident in your riding, you don't have to go from, climbing giant hills all of a sudden or go straight to like jumping bridges or whatever it is. Like just start with small skills and work up to them. Start with cones and then move to trees like we do at our facility and, weaving through things like that. That'll help just slowing down your practice. You can also film your practice so that you can see your body position. That helps, if you don't have someone there that you trust to give you the right feedback, you can video yourself. One of the things that I really like about the Performance Center is that we have a really small instructor to student ratio. So the max that we shoot for is 3 students for every instructor in our classes. So getting good feedback like that really helps. And then I have one here. It's positive peer pressure. When I first started riding, I was very lucky to get in with a really cool group of motorcyclists that if I rolled up in like a fashion jacket instead of a proper jacket, they would give me a hard time. Or if I didn't have a full face, I had like a little 3/4 helmet or something, they would give me a hard time about that. So finding people around you that actually really care about you, and want you to like improve in your riding and make it into old age as a motorcyclist is a really valuable thing to have. And we're lucky. I mean, we have SheADV. I think we have that here.
I love that. It's so
Yeah.
cool. Confidence, it's so interesting when I think of confidence, like I feel like it's non-linear, right? It's like there's times when you're feeling like a
Yeah.
million bucks, and then I always feel like my confidence dips just
Mm-hmm.
before I'm about to exceed my highest expectation.
Yes.
So it's I like, and I don't know, I'm sure you see this out there, but like when you're in that moment of extreme self-doubt, I just feel like it's like the perimeter of your understanding being stretched. And like
Yeah.
just before when you doubt yourself the least, it's like right before that breakthrough. And it's like
Yes. That
such
is
a reminder
so
to stay
true.
there.
Yes, sorry. That is so true. I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things that we say at the Performance Center is challenge by choice.
Mm,
We are here observing you ride, and we can see those moments when they're happening. And we might challenge you a little bit to kind of push outside of your comfort zone because you're here in a controlled environment with professionals. But it's your choice. You paid the money to be there. So we're not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. But we will watch for those moments of growth that we can help kind of guide you through.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I mean, it's got to be just so incredibly rewarding,
Yes,
to be instructing and to be teaching on a regular basis. I love it.
it really is.
Um, so we were going to talk a little bit about, so this is a cool picture. So Wendy shared this with us earlier. This is actually her first class at the Performance Center. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about community because that's so important to us here at SheADV. Katie, what do you see? And FYI, you are on mute, Katie, but take it away if you want to chime in a little bit about the community side of things. What kind of stuff do you see at the Performance Center and elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, the community is really a big part of adventure riding, especially coming from motocross, where like it's a little bit different. And getting into the adventure world, everybody's like pretty tight and very encouraging, especially the women's side of things. Like whenever we do our women's classes, everybody's very encouraging. And like no matter what level you're at, if you've been riding for decades or you maybe just a new rider, it doesn't matter. And also like I believe like no matter where you are, you can always learn from people. And watching other people helps. But I don't really think it matters where you've come from either. Like the background that you have, everybody has the same passion, which is really nice. Like I love my job and I have the same passion as everybody else has. But seeing like the different backgrounds that people have come through and how they've gotten here and how they've gotten into adventure riding. It's all really cool and that we all have like the same passion and that's to ride motorcycles and have a good time with motorcycles. And then obviously off-road riding is near and dear to my heart as well. So, and a lot of times people ride off-road, it may be new or they maybe have never done it. So getting to share some of my like background and my knowledge of being on dirt basically my whole life is also really cool. But yeah, the encouragement and the support from the adventure world and especially the ladies in adventure riding is really it's awesome. But yeah, if you guys have any questions on it, I did see some questions like on the center stand and stuff, and I'm not super strong or super big. I'm like 5'4", 5'5", maybe on a good day, maybe with my boots on. But like putting the bike on the center stand and stuff, like honestly, if you get the right technique and everything, it just becomes so much easier. But how like you just have to practice and that goes with anything in life as well, just practice. Practice makes perfect, but practicing the perfect way also helped as well. But if you do come to the performance center, it is nice because like they said, everything's liability free. You don't have to worry about dropping the bike and breaking a lever, because after you break a few levers, if you're having to pay for it, it gets pretty expensive. So it is nice that you don't have to worry about that, and that I think you can get a better training out of that because you're not worried about dropping the bike and damaging it. And then on the flip side, if you're riding your bike, if you were to drop it, you're like, oh, I scratched it, which these bikes already have the scratches on them before you get here. So that's also really cool. But I love the community in the off-road, well, any adventure on road and off-road riding. And like I said, especially the women's. And whenever we do our women's classes, the talks that we have at the tent are definitely a lot different than our co-ed classes. But it's awesome. The support, like I said, is so cool that we have from the ladies.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. So somebody was asking, one of the questions that we have in the queue is can you bring your own bike um to the perform like can you bring your own
Yeah,
bike?
so we did used to allow that. That was before I was here. So I've never seen it. But we do not allow that anymore just because I believe if people would drop their bike or something like that, they would get pretty upset. So now like it's kind of out of the picture. You don't have to worry about dropping your bike. And everything's on our bikes. And yeah, so we don't allow that anymore.
Right on.
But we do
And
have all
somebody,
the GS models. Sorry to cut you off. We do have all the
nope, you're
GS
good.
models from the 310 up to 1300. And with that being said, let's say you start on a smaller bike, but you're like, oh man, I really want to try a larger bike, a bigger bike. You're not stuck to that bike that you chose. If you want to try every bike, we can get you every bike. So you're open to try anything throughout your training time here.
That's so fun.
Can I add one thing? Sorry, Eva.
Yeah, please, please
One
take
of
it
the
away,
cool
ladies.
things, one of the cool things for our on-road classes, we do something called the ultimate test ride. So you still train on a GS model, but at the end you get to try several of the fleet of the on-road fleet. So you even get to try other types of bikes when we do our on-road classes.
That's super fun. Wait, is there a class where you can just like do it all? Like, can you just like move to the performance center for a month and drive all the cars and ride all the motorcycles? Because that's the class I want.
You could. We do sometimes have a 1 day on road, 1 day off road back to back, so you can do both.
I love that. That's so fun. That's so
We
fun.
also have a boot camp, which is 2 day on 2 day, yeah, 2 day on road, 2 day off road, and then on day 5 is a 50-50 tour. So we have one in April and then one in October, I believe.
Hmm.
So we have it twice a year. So it's always good fun. And the last one just sold out. I'm not sure how the one later in the year is looking. So it's co-ed, but it's still a lot of fun.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and also that's Monday through Friday, so you could stay for whatever car school is Saturday, Sunday, and just make it a week-long vacation.
Yep.
Love the sound of this. I love it. Mackenzie, I feel like it's been a minute since we've heard from you. Is there anything that sparked your interest that you need to share with us? Like talking about the community, talking about the classes, the trainings, what makes the Performance Center really unique?
Um, One thing that just kind of to add on about bringing your own bikes. Um, that was an option when I first started here. And the people that did bring their own bikes, what we've seen when they did do that is they would do the exercises. They would do it once, maybe twice, and then they would stop and they would like, I don't want to wreck my bike. And that is one thing when you're training and you're learning a new skill, you probably at some point going to go down. You're going to drop it. If damaging your bike or the cost of fixing something is in the back of your mind, that could definitely hinder you getting to that next level or hold you back a little bit. So that's another reason that we went away from that. And I believe we are one of the only places in the US that is liability free. So we understand that it does cost a lot to come here, especially if you're not a local, you've got your travel involved as well. But it's a huge benefit of not having to worry. Personally, I've seen people damage a couple of bikes, a lot of damage, and they were personally fine. And they, can continue to ride. And they were like, wow, if I would have had to pay for that, it would have cost me so much money. So that's one thing that, I think a lot of people don't realize or don't, understand that obviously is included somewhat in the price and why we have to charge a little bit more than some other places. But it's a huge benefit because you could, damage an engine or something and it's $8,000. You're not going to get a bill. So that's just kind of one thing that I added on. But just like Katie said as well, like the community, it obviously is a little bit different from mine and Katie's background. Coming from racing, it's a little bit more competitive. Obviously, people cheer you on and stuff, but definitely in the venture world, it's a lot more friendly. It's as well a little bit different age. So, people are coming into it later in life, or they're, we see all the time people have had kids and they're now in college or they moved out. They're like, what are we going to do with our spare time? So they get into, adventure riding and, maybe the husband rides and now their wife's wanting to ride and it's a family, atmosphere and they're going on trips around the world. So from that side of things, it's really cool to see.
I love that. That's so awesome. A question is, what are the smallest bikes you provide? I'm assuming it's not Honda Groms because it's the BMW Performance Center. So it's probably the 310, right?
Yeah, we have a 310. For the on-road class, we have the 310, and then for the off-road, we have a 310 GS. But surprisingly, the 800 is actually smaller than the 310. Not engine size, but as far as like the height, especially if we have it with a low seat and it's a low 800, it actually sits lower than the 310 GS. So sometimes people, that may not know a lot about the bikes go, I want a 310 GS, and then they're struggling a little bit. We say, hey, how about you try the 800 GS, which is another benefit of you're not stuck with a bike for the entire class. But yeah, that's that. We have whole range of fleet and it's a good time.
I love that. We've got just a few more minutes, and I just wanted to take a couple questions that have been getting tossed around on our SheADV passing notes in class side conversation. And I'd love to hear from each of you what skills matter most and what do you suggest that we all work on? Because I mean, I don't know what the weather's like out there, but it is riding season in full force out here. So maybe let's just do a little go around and talk a little bit about about skills and what we should all be practicing.
Yeah, I can go first on that. I think the majority, all of our classes start with clutch control, so very slow speed, um, fine motor control. I think that's where everything starts. And then if you've ever been to, well, hopefully any training, but especially ours, is vision. Like everything in motorcycling starts with vision. So that, by and large, is the most important skill. Your brain is the hardest muscle to train. So it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of seat time to really focus on making sure your vision and your eyes are where they need to be, where they should be, not where is comfortable. I think that just in those two things could accelerate your skills and your learning and your abilities faster than anything else combined. So
I love that.
I personally think body position, as well, everything that Melinda said, but also, some people don't really think about it is like how are they riding on the bike, especially off-road riding. We see a lot of newer riders and stuff. Maybe they're squatting and you're burning a lot of energy. And when you're out here off-road riding, you're usually riding for a pretty long time, or a long distance. So we want to conserve as much energy as we can. So if you can, get some videos of you riding and look at your body position, because it may feel like you're doing something, then you see a video and you're like, oh, I did not feel like I looked. And I have been there coming from training basically my whole life, from the time I was probably like 10 years old at a training facility. So I've been there, I've been in that situation where I'm like, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Then I see a video and I'm like, oh, okay, I wasn't doing it. Or if you could get a second eyes on you, as well. So that's another thing that's nice about, coming to training, is that we can tell you, like, oh, maybe your weight wasn't far, back enough. Maybe you're squatting a little bit too much on the bike. Back to what Melinda said, like your vision. And that's probably number one thing that we say the most. If I had to count how many times I've probably said, get your vision up. If I had $1 every time, I'd be a millionaire. um, but yeah, it all starts with that. So if you can practice that stuff, it's really important.
Love it.
I think, as far as a skill, obviously, but everything that those two ladies said is definitely super, super important. But learning how quickly you can stop your motorcycle. Emergency braking. We're riding motorcycles. It's not a matter of if, it's sometimes a matter of when something's going to happen. And just being comfortable with the bike that you're riding and the braking power that you do have. Even if we're going, 10 miles an hour, something jumps out and catches us off guard. We have to react and then bring the bike to a stop. But then, if we're going more real life speeds, maybe we're going 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down the interstate, things happen really fast. We need to be able to react. So that's a really important skill to practice. And it is a skill that we offer both in our on and off-road classes. And it's more often than not, people are surprised at how quickly these bikes do come to a stop. And, that really surprises them and shocks them and makes them think, I need to practice this a little bit more often. So that one's always really good as well.
I love that. Just because we're on the topic, we have a question in the chat. How do you practice keeping your eyes up? I'm terrible at it.
Melinda.
So depending on what kind of riding you're doing, on road, I suggest you look several cars ahead, which you can do that while you're driving your car as well. Not focusing on the bumper in front of you, or even the person in front of them. It's really just getting your vision up. And we call it committed space, which is really what's right in front of you that you can't really do anything about. Anything beyond that. And the more comfortable you get and the better at riding you get, the easier that will become. But off-road, typically when we're out on the range, we tell people to like look at the top of the trees or, beyond whatever that obstacle is. So if it's, I don't know, a long mud hole or a big stretch of sand or a rut or whatever it is. You're really just looking for your exit, whatever's beyond that, instead of looking straight down at whatever is in that, in the sand or in the mud or in the rut, because by the time you react, it's usually too late. So just finding a point and really focusing your vision on that, and then just keep advancing that a little bit at a time. So where you're riding and what kind of riding you're doing, there's not like a specific amount of feet or something like that. Speed can make a huge difference. If you're going slower, you can get away with kind of looking through the trail a little bit more closely. But at speed, you definitely need to raise that vision up, look a lot further, because you're traveling at a lot higher speed and covering more ground. So, you're going to come up on whatever that obstacle is a lot faster.
I also have literally had to yell at myself. Like in a turn, I start to feel myself drift out a little bit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then in my helmet, will yell at myself, look. And as soon as I turn my head, the bike leans in, no problem.
Yeah, I think I saw in the chat where other people, I definitely talk to myself a lot in my helmet, to maybe the people on my comms dismay. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with talking to yourself and chanting something or, reminding yourself out loud. I think that's very helpful, and I do it all the time. So
I love it. Last thoughts, ladies. Anything else we don't want to? I've got a couple things that I do want to mention, of course, at the very, very end, some SheADV business things, but just I would love to hear any last thoughts or feelings, or why we need to all go move to the Performance Center and take all the classes every single day, all day long, because it sounds so ridiculously fun. Anything else that the ladies need to know tonight before we start wrapping it up?
I just have one skill to share
Yeah.
that people can practice no matter what type of riding they're doing, and that's covering your controls with one or two fingers, and that's both controls. Like you'll see us do this in the class, and that's because you're four fingering the handlebars. So I want you to reach up and just rest your fingers over the controls, because like Melinda was saying before, things come at you pretty quick, things happen fast, and it's your natural instinct when something, or I said Melinda, I think it's Mackenzie. So when something happens in front of you and you need to do an emergency braking, people tend to just kind of grip like this out of fear suddenly. So if you're covering your controls, then you're taking power away from the motor pulling that clutch, and you're already on that front brake to do that emergency braking. And a personal quick anecdote, I was out riding with the team one time, and I was near the back, and we're like cutting through some twisty roads in California. Beautiful. And I'm doing 55 miles an hour, maybe 60. And I come over like just the slightest little hill. And as soon as I do, the entire team is parked at a stop sign, and it's a highway. And it took, even with my training I'd been at the PC at that point for 2 or 3 years, covering my controls, thank God, because I immediately went into the emergency braking. And when I came to a complete stop, I was on the oncoming lane, and I looked over and was looking at my teammates. So if I hadn't been covering my controls, I would have been out in the highway, or rear-ended one of my teammates or something. So covering your controls could save your life. Just like practicing emergency braking, they kind of go hand in hand.
I love that. Wendy, I also feel like that brings us back to what we were saying before, and that idea of getting professional training. So important.
Training and practice of good things you learn. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Seat time is unparalleled, because you can study it, you can watch all the YouTube you want, you can, join all these classes that you want. But if you don't get out there and actually do it and practice it and, put some time in the seat, then you'll never improve. So
I love that.
Great.
Awesome. Katie, Mackenzie, Melinda, Wendy, thank you all so much. Let me just, everybody's socials are in the chat here. We can drop them in there again. Here's the ladies. Definitely jump in, give them a follow, reach out. I'm sure you ladies are all available for questions all the time. And it's going to be easy enough. Contact any Performance Center trainer via socials for the discount. So Let's all just reach out to all of them, spam them in the DMs, and go take all of these awesome training courses with this 20% off. This is super cool. Ladies, thank you all so much for being here tonight. So, so cool. I can't wait to keep peppering you with questions, and I can't wait to just see you out on the trail.